Hey guys, in this video, we're going to make the user search in our navbar functional. We are only going to have it search for profiles today, but if you wanted to make it search for posts, comments, or anything else, you should be able to follow similar steps to what is being done here to have it search for whatever else you want it to. To make this search work, we will use the Q object, which comes with Django, to search for keywords in the profile. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started by making some changes to the navbar. So the first thing we need to do, we need to go into our landing app, go into our templates, and come down to our navbar.html. And if we scroll down here, you'll see that we have, looks like right here, we have this form for this. Fix our index real quick, but for this search field here, we're missing a few things though. We're missing a button to actually submit the search, as well as a couple more details on our input field itself. So first, focusing on this input field, we need to add a name and a value attribute to it. So let's come down here right before the closing div tag, and we will go ahead and put in a name equals, and we'll call it, let's call it query. And we'll give it a value equals, and this will be 2 clear braces, and we'll pass in request.get.query. And so what we're doing here is we're setting whatever we type into this field, we're setting the name to equal query. So in our URL, it will say query equals, and then whatever we typed into this field. And this value attribute will just take, if there is a query attribute in our URL, so if it says query equals something, it will take that value and it will pre-populate the input field with that value. So after we search for it, we want the value to stay in that field or stay within the text field that we typed in. We don't want it to go back to being empty. That just helps a little bit with this user experience, having it still be there so they can see what they searched. But that should fix up our input field. Now let's go ahead and add a button so when we can click on something to actually submit the search. So below this input field, I'm going to create a button. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a style equaling order none. We'll give it a background color of transparent. And we will give it a box shadow of none. And so all we're doing here is getting rid of the default styles that the buttons have, and just kind of give it just a blank transparent style instead. We'll set a type equaling submit. And now for the text, first I'll close off the button tag, but for this text here, instead of putting it into our text, I'm going to go ahead and use a font awesome icon. And so we already installed that and got that all set up earlier in this series. So we should be able to just use it now. So inside of our button here, I'll do an a class that equals fa-search. Now let's give us a little search icon. Now I'll go ahead and close off the I tag as well. We save that. Now let's go ahead and run our server real quick. So I'll go ahead and just, first let's see where I'm at. So first I'll activate my virtual environment, source.env/bin/activate. And then I'll go ahead and run Python 3 manage.py run server. And here we go. Let's go ahead and log in. There we go. And so now up here in our navbar, we have a search field that says username, and we have a button here, which right now does nothing. But we have a way to submit a search now at least. Okay, now with that done, let's go ahead and add a search view and a search URL. So we'll need to add an actual view that will then be used to render a template that will list out all the profiles that are found in the search. So let's create that first. So in our views.py, actually go back to our social app, to our views.py. So we'll go right here, scroll on the bottom here, and I'll create a new class. So I'll create a class, and it's called, we'll call it UserSearch. We'll inherit from our generic view class, and then we'll add a get method. So we want to add a get method here because we're going to put the parameter for our search inside of the URL. And so we want this just to be a get request. And so I'll pass in self, I'll pass in request, star args and star quargs. And now we need to go ahead and first we need to get the query that we searched for. And since it'll show up in our URL, I guess for example, in case this doesn't make sense. So up here, it'll say query equals right now, and it has nothing. It will have whatever we search for when we hit submit usually. So if I type in something here and hit search, it shows up in our URL right after the query equals. And so we can grab this query and figure out what it's assigned to. We can do this by typing query equals self.request.get in all caps .get and pass in the name of whatever we called it, which in this case was query, so I'll pass in query. Next, I'll go ahead and filter out by the profiles. So type profile list equals user profile dot objects dot filter, and now we want to pass in the queue object. So in Django has this useful tool here, which we can use, which is called queue. We can type in queue and put some parentheses, and then we can figure out some sort of filter parameter here. And so in this case, I want to find if the username on the profile matches what it was searched. So I can type user double underscore username double underscore I contains equals query. So now if the username that's on this profile, so if we go to our models.py here, you'll see we have a user on our user profile. So we can go ahead and type user double underscore. What do we want from that user? We want the username double underscore I contains. So if anything in the query contains something that matches this username, then we want to return it inside of this profile list. Up here at the top, when you go ahead and import queue, so I'll type right below the render, I'll type from django.db.models import queue. And I come back down here. And now below this, now we have our profiles all listed out. All we need to do now is just create a context variable, pass in our profile list, and render that all to a template. So I'll type context equals profile list, and then down here, return render request social slash, I'll call it search.html, and we'll pass in the context. And that's it. That's the whole review. And so really the only new thing here is just this queue object and how to create the parameters and different query strings, from our different models. And we could do something similar to this for anything else. So if we were to go to like our posts, or so we could do, body double underscore I contains, author double underscore I contains, define users that match the author, or whatever else. But for now, we're going to keep it just to the username on the profile itself. So now with that done, let's go to create a URL pattern for this view. So inside of our urls.py, let's go to, we'll put it here at the bottom, I guess. So let's start by creating a path and pass in our URL, which in this case will just be search with a trailing slash. And we didn't import the view, so we need to import this view real quick. So we'll come here, type user search. And then over here, we'll go ahead and do UserSearch.as_view, like we do for all class-based views. And then we'll do a name equals, give it a name equals profile dash search. Close off that, so closing parentheses, put a comma, and that's our whole view. So go ahead and save that. And now the final step to make this whole thing work is just to create a template to actually list out all of these profiles we have in our profile list variable. So let's go ahead and create a new file inside of our templates folder. And we'll go ahead and save this as just search.html, which is what we called it here in our view. So make sure this matches this right here. Okay, so now we have our search.html. Let's go ahead and start building this out. So I'm going to go ahead and first extend our base template, extends landing/base.html. And then I'm going to go ahead here and create a content block. So block content. And now we'll also close off the content block. So we'll type in block content. Then inside this content block here, I don't need that many spaces. Let's create a container first. So we'll do a div, a class equals container. And we'll go to close off that div. And then we'll go ahead and do a for loop here. So do for profile in profile list. So we're just looping through everything we saved inside of here. So all the profiles that we found that match the query, we want to go ahead and list those all out. So inside of this for loop, first I'll go ahead and close it off so I don't forget. Now inside of this for loop here, let's go ahead and create a row. So we'll do a div class equals row, justify content center, and margin top -3. And now inside of this div, this row here, we'll go ahead and create a div, a class equals column -md-5 and column -sm-12. Border -bottom, and we'll add a position -relative here. Now we'll go ahead and close off that div. And now inside of this column here, let's go ahead and create a p tag and an anchor tag inside of there. We'll give a style of text -declaration of none. And we'll give it a class of text-primary to make it that primary blue color. And we'll give it an href. And you want this to go to a Django URL. So we'll do curly braces, 2% signs. And we'll type in, we want to go to the profile route. So URL, and then in quotes, profile. And then we want to pass in the profile.pk to go to the correct profile. Okay, now with that set up there, next we want to go ahead and put the @ and then pass in the username. So profile.user. And then you can go ahead and close off our A tag and close off our P tag. So this will just show, just in that blue color, a link to the profile with the username with the @ sign before it. Next, below this, I'm going to go and show the location that the user put in if there is a location. So first, let's check if there's a location. So if profile.location. So if there is one, let's go ahead and show that on the screen. So we'll do a p tag, 2 curly braces, and we'll type in profile.location. We'll close off the p tag here. And below this, I'll end the if statement. So I'll type in 2% signs and if. Okay, great. Next, let's go ahead and show all the followers they have. So we'll show the username, their location if they have one, and how many followers they have on this search page. So below this end if, I'll type in our p tag here and put followers with a colon, and then in 2 curly braces, I can type in profile.followers.all.count, and that will grab all the followers. So this all returns a list, and .count will return the length of that list. And so this will return the number of followers this user has. Then you can go ahead and close off that p tag there. And that should be it. Then we close off our column, the for loop there, we close off our row. It's like we are missing one, it looks like. We need one more right here to close off that row, and this closes off the column, the container. Perfect. Okay, with that done, let's go ahead and save that. And let's see how this works. And I'm actually, now that I think about it, I did forget to do one more thing. In our navbar, we had everything set up, except we haven't told the form where to go. So back inside of our navbar.html, if we were to go back into our landing app, our templates, landing, and go to navbar.html, right here where we have our form, right now there's no method and there's no action on it. So it's going to send a GET request to the same URL, which is the social feed, which is not the view that has all the logic to actually search for anything. So that won't work. So instead, inside this form tag here, we need to put two things. First, a method, which will be GET, to tell we want to send a GET request, as well as an action. And the action tells it where to go, like where to send the form data to. And we want to send it to this URL right here, the one we just created for the search. And so I can use a Django URL and just add in this to go to this search URL. So let's go back into our navbar here, and we'll do a Django URL. So we'll do 2% or 2 curly braces, 2% signs, URL, and then whatever I called that, which I called it profile-search. So I'll type profile-search, and that should be it. Now when we save that, we come back here, reload the page. We were to type something in, let's type AD for admin, hit search, and there we go. Now we have the admin showing up, our location's USA, and we have no followers right now. If I were to type something like test, now our test 5 user shows up, USA with 0 followers. If we were to type in, just A, we still get admin. If we were to type in T, we still get test 5 because T is included inside of this username. So it will search for exact matches as well as just partial matches as well, like in this case, T with test. And so that's really it. We just wanted to get the simple search page working. Right now, it doesn't look super great, but we'll come back in the last video in this series and make everything look much better. But for now, it's all working, and everything's working pretty well. The only thing we don't have here is any way to go back. So I might put a link to go back to the social feed as well. Let's do that real quick. So we can really just kind of copy and paste for this. It could be exactly the same that we have in other pages. So if I were to go back into my social app here, let's go to our templates. Let's go to like, I don't even know, anything, I guess, really, a post detail where we have a button. So right here, this button, I'm gonna go ahead and copy this whole thing. So just copy this row that has our link for the button, the back to feed. And I'm gonna come back into my search.html and put that above this for loop. So like right here. And then I can go ahead and just change this. Actually, no, we'll keep all that the same. We'll keep everything the same, really. We'll just save that. Now let's come back and reload our page. And now we have a back to feed button, which takes us back to the social feed. That just helps a little bit with navigation. And so that's it for this video. The code will be in the description below. The starting and the ending code, as well as a link to the written tutorial, like it normally is. I'll also put the link to the Q object documentation in case you want to read up more about that and how to use that. But that is it for now. We'll be back soon to add more to this. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.